Good evening, everyone. Good evening to those who are joining us for the first time today, and those who have been with us in these topics for several times. Welcome you once again this Thursday evening on all the platforms, on Zoom, on Facebook, and on YouTube. And I hope that we are having a good week so far. Last week we spoke about trauma and we spoke about post-traumatic stress um, um, disorder as well, PTSD. And we introduced the subject of trauma. We spoke about it for a while, and time ran out on us, and we did not finish talking about the topic. And we promised that we will do part two. And therefore, that is the build up for tonight's topic, which is trauma bonds. That's what we'll be talking about tonight, trauma bonds. We will talk about it generally, which, as it applies to everyone, and we'll also talk about it as it applies to children that have suffered trauma, how they end up in their lives also suffering from trauma bonding. Excuse me. Unfortunately, my regular guest in the show is not available right now, which is my friend and colleague Darius. He has a bereavement and he is attending to that. Hopefully, he will join us later today. Busi, who joined us for the first time last week, is feeling unwell for the day, so we have that apology as well. But today I am joined by a wonderful woman who is a professional in the field of psychology, Potrine Muzumba. Potrine is an educational psychologist and a mental health activist. She is joining us today to take us through trauma bonds. Welcome, friends and colleague, to this platform. And I hope that we are going to have a wonderful evening together. You can unmute yourself and greet the viewers before we start. Potrine?
Hello, can you get me? Hello, can you get me?
Yes, we can hear you. You can go ahead and greet us.
All right, good evening, wherever you're watching us from. My name is Apoche Benzo Muzumba. I'm an educational psychologist, as you earlier stated. I'm also a mental health advocate. I'll be joining you in today's program, the talk trauma bonding, and thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, sis. Let's get right into it. So, what is trauma bonding? Because we can't start talking about it without us knowing exactly what is it. So, what is trauma bonding?
Okay, so let me assume that everyone, since you're saying this topic is a build up from where you left last week, so I believe everyone basically understands what trauma is from that point. So trauma bonding, in simpler terms, is just an emotional bond which is created between the abuser and the victim. So in this case, this is where you are made to feel like you are the victim, and yet you're the victim, and yet you are made to feel like you are the one who's at fault for whatever is happening. So trauma bonding then is a bond that is created between the one who's being abused and the victim and abuser. Sorry.
That's very interesting. Then I'm tempted to divert a little bit just for us to understand this. Would this then be the case? that happens when a woman that is being abused by a man finds herself saying, no, but I love him. I don't want him to get arrested. He's the father of my children, and keep on forgiving this person. Would that be a case of trauma bonding?
Yes, actually, that is what it is. Because with trauma bonding, I think some of the signs is where you begin to defend the person that is abusing you, and you actually get to argue with the people that are trying to get you out of that situation. So you're trying to cover up for the abuser, which is exactly the scenario you just explained.
Wow. The human mind is just something else. It's very interesting. I'm not sure if everyone can hear you. Your volume sounds very low. Can you, I don't know, come closer to the mic or increase it a bit?
Okay. All right. How is it now?
It's still a bit far. I'm worried about those that are joining in Zoom. If they can hear us, I hope that they can indicate somewhere, somehow, if they are hearing us or not.
Um. Okay. How
Okay,
is it now?
still a bit far, but okay, no one has complained yet, so I'm hoping that they can hear you. All
All
right.
right.
So then, if okay, we've described what trauma bond is, and we've given an example of what it is. I've heard that there's something called trauma bond cycle. What is that? How does it affect the victim, the person who's being abused or who's experiencing trauma? What is a trauma bond cycle?
So, a trauma bond cycle, in short, is a series of the stages that you go through that make you become an addict of trauma or whatever the situation it is that you are going through. So, these are the stages.
Sorry, sis, they are asking you to speak louder. They are really struggling to hear you.
Okay, let me try to use headset.
Please, yes.
Right. Just just a minute.
Okay. Right. Whilst Patrine is fixing him mic there. Well, if you just joined us, so what we're talking about today is trauma bonding. This is a build up from last week's topic when we were talking about trauma and we spoke about post-traumatic stress disorder as well, PTSD. So today we are addressing trauma bonding. And I do hope that today's topic will, I need to put this nicely, thank you. I hope that today's topic will help us understand those who have stayed in abusive relationships where they've experienced trauma. I hope it will reduce the questions that we usually ask victims on why did they stay? Why did you not leave? And I really hope that this topic will also help those who may be going through this situation when they realize the amount of damage that happens the longer they stay. So yeah, I hope that our volume there is getting fixed and that we can hear Katrine very well. So this is not just a topic for only, I'm so sorry guys, I'm using two devices and one is busy falling. I'm trying to fix it. This is not just a topic for parents. It's a topic for everyone because all of us have can go through trauma, and we can find ourselves experiencing this trauma bonding issue. Patrine, can you try again? Patrine has disappeared now. All right. In the meantime, we can comment on the question, ask questions on both or on all the platforms. I almost said on both Facebook and Zoom. I forgot we are also live on YouTube. You can comment, put your comments. I will receive them as they come, whilst we fix my guest here. And can we try now, Patrin? You are muted. What's happening now? Okay, there we go.
Hello.
Hi.
Can you get me? Am I audible enough now?
You sound much better now.
All right. Thank you. Sorry for
Thank you.
that.
Okay, it's fine. So okay, so we were about to explain what trauma bond cycle is.
Yes. So I was saying trauma bond cycle, this is a cycle of repetitions of the stages that lead you to be attached with the abuser. All right. So these are just repeated cycles of abuse, devaluation, and positive reinforcement. So it
All
becomes a
right.
cycle because you're passing through different stages, and from this stage you go to the next, from the next you go to the next. It becomes a cycle because you adapt to it, and then it keeps on recurring time and time again.
So is it then safe to say that the longer you stay in a traumatic situation, the stronger the bond becomes, and the longer the cycle takes to break as well?
Exactly, because the more you stay in the situation, and you are creating the bond, and the attachment is becoming stronger by the day. So you are becoming more vulnerable and desperate. So it makes it even more difficult for you. This is where it gets you to a point where you give up because you feel you can no longer do. You learn helplessness. So the bond is stronger, and yeah, as you stay longer there.
What then takes to break that bond?
Well, the best way to do how to break the bonds, you need to really see a psychologist or mental health therapist to help you go through a therapy sessions, because it's not something that you can easily break, because this is a bond that has been created for some people over years, over 20 years. So it's really takes professional help for you to be able to break these bonds. But there are certain steps that you can easily take to help you go as you, because you need to take it personal. You need to make the decision to break that bond. So there are certain things that you need to be doing, but in as much as you are helping yourself, you need professional help as well.
So I'm assuming that if I've stayed in a traumatic situation enough, I might not even know that I'm trauma bonded. Is that possible?
Yes, it's very
How
possible.
what does it take for a person then to know that what I'm going through now is trauma bond? Because I'm assuming if I'm this situation, I take it as this is life as usual for me. This is normal life for me. This person has been with me. I will even say through thick and thin. And I know that they are not always a good person towards me. Sometimes they abuse me or whatever, but I also have good things I remember about them. And I stay in this situation and the trauma bond grows and grows. What will it take then for me to know that this is trauma bond? I am trauma bonded here.
So the vulnerability keeps on increasing over time because the abuser or the perpetrators of abuse will not stop abusing you. That's why we say it's a cycle. So it continues. The perpetrators of this abuse will continue to abuse you time and time again. So you become more and more vulnerable. And so you discover that in the it's called for you you're seeing it as love, but then you are losing yourself in the vein. You feel vulnerable, you feel broken, you lose yourself. So then the moment you start realizing that, then it's a sign to show you that you may be actually trauma bonded.
Mm. Wow. Um, I'm very interested in this topic because it's something that I've gone through, and I think that's one of the reasons why I get upset when people ask, especially people that have when they ask victims or people that have been abused, in their homes or in a domestic situation, when they ask them, so why did you not leave? I it took 3 years for me to finally get to a point where I was like, I don't like the person that I'm becoming. I don't like the person that this guy has made me to be. And during that 3 years, I don't remember a time where, okay, I didn't even know about trauma bond, obviously. I don't remember a time where I felt like, no, this is it, until that one day I was like, this is enough. I cannot continue doing this anymore. So I'm asking these questions to help someone who may be going through the situation, who is who could maybe be holding on to the idea of this person has been with me for so many years. I cannot just up and go. I cannot just leave them. So what do we say to such a person? How do we help a person who, those of us now who have better knowledge, now we know that there's trauma bond, we know that this person could be going through trauma bond. How do we help a person who is so fixated on my abuser loves me? How do we get them help? How do we get them out of that situation?
So, like I initially stated, where you're supposed to be able to identify to say, I think this is trauma bonding now. You're becoming more and more vulnerable with time. So you need to be able to identify and say, okay, I'm losing myself. I'm no longer myself. And how you identify, one of the ways that you can easily identify that you're trauma bonded is by you also realize that you lose certain relationships that you had with your family, with your friends, because you've lost part of your identity. People can no longer socialize with you the way they used to do. So you're becoming a loner. You are no longer yourself. All right. So once you realize that that is what is becoming of you, instead of losing yourself entirely, while you feel and you find those signs that are showing you to say you might be trauma bonded, you need to make a decision to stand up for yourself and take a step to begin your process of healing and relieving yourself from the bond.
Mm. Wow, that's very interesting because I remember one of the things that I said to myself when I decided to walk out was, I cannot recognize myself anymore. This is not me anymore. I knew the person I was before I met this person, and I was not that person anymore. The pain that I was going through had completely changed me. So I do agree with you that you have to get to a point where you realize that I am no longer the same person, and that usually clicks something in your mind to say, no man, I need to do something about this. Okay, but now we have spoken more about trauma that is a result of um, domestic violence, right? What about general trauma? Other types of trauma that are not necessarily because of abuse at home. How do we identify? Okay? First of all, is is there a possibility of a trauma bond outside of a situation of a victim and abuser, type of situation? Do other types of trauma also create trauma bonds?
Yes, they do. They do, because we're not just looking at maybe a spouse or girlfriend boyfriend relationship. It could be a child and their parents. It could be a worker and their employer. You know, as long as they're making you vulnerable, they're demeaning your identity. You can no longer work independently. For you to operate, you need to depend on them and operate according to their. Despite it being at your the expense of your own health. Yeah.
But generally, isn't that what parents do? Like, I mean, isn't that the natural kind of relationship between a parent and a child? The dependency, the parent controlling, for a lack of a better word, controlling the child. Would I mean, where do we draw the line? I guess that's the question. Like, where do we draw the line between being an abusive parent and just being a parent that is disciplinary and trying to take care of the child? I mean, there's until a certain age, the child is fully dependent on you. Where do we draw the line? Where do we balance it off?
Um, so how you are able to show the difference between whether it's just parenting or it's becoming some abuse or whatnot is when you realize that you can no longer okay, so let's say we put in a situation of a child. You always try to manipulate them or try to make them fall for your narrative, making them believe that what you are saying is what is actually the thing. Even when you are the one who's at fault, you know that you are the parent, quite alright, but you need to apologize, quite alright, maybe for something that you've done wrong. But you make the situation in such a way that the child feels like they're the ones who are wrong and they need to apologize for that.
Mm, mm. So parents then don't give their children freedom to be parents that force their children apologize for things that they have not done, and parents that believe that they are right just because they are parents. I
They
hear
create
you. I hear you.
exactly.
I've heard that there are stages of trauma bonding. Would you please tell us about these stages?
Okay, so there are 7 stages of trauma bonding. So I'll explain. I'll mention them firstly, and then I can expand on each one of them. The first one is the love bombing. Then we have trust and dependency. There's criticism, manipulation, and gaslighting. We have resignation and giving up, and we have loss of self. And finally, we have the addiction to the cycle. So, starting
Mm,
with the first stage, the love bombing. This is where someone is showering you with excess love, flattery, and appreciation to gain your affection. You know, they are trying to gain your trust. So they'll tell you all sorts of nice things. So at the moment you fall for them, when they start abusing you, you're not able to identify or differentiate to say this is now abuse because they have flattered you, you are sugar coated, and you really can't see that this is in the end will turn out like this. So that is for love bombing. That's the first stage. The second stage is the trust independency stage. This is where you are doing everything within your means to gain your trust and make you depend on them heavily for love and validation. So you
mm,
feel like you don't feel you are it's like whatever they love, they're making you trust them to such an extent whereby um you believe them no matter what they say. You trust them. So here at this stage, basically what is happening is trust building. They're building the
mm,
trust. Yeah. The third stage is criticism. So after they have earned your trust, now they know that you trust them, they flattered you with all their love and all sorts of things. Now they begin to criticize you. At this point, they know it's not difficult to make you vulnerable because one, they've already earned your trust, and secondly, they've given you and they've showered you with all the love. So at this point, it's like you are somehow partially blind. You can't really see what is going to be happening next. So they
Okay,
make you.
before we go on, can we, like, I don't know, give examples of those stages? For an example, I give an example of love bombing because I've gone through all of these. I think that I've had so far.
Okay.
For me, the love bombing was on public display of affection, poems written on social media, me being tagged on these poems, gifts, and it was a lot of love, a lot and lot of love. That's love bombing, where love bombing doesn't become a red flag. It should be a red flag normally. But when it meets a person who is already vulnerable, it becomes very difficult to see it as a red flag. I'm now
Yeah, yeah.
reflecting on my own experience. When I was love bombed, I was already in a vulnerable situation of thinking that I was running late for getting married. I was 29. I already had two kids out of wedlock. There was a pressure of you should settle down. You know, you should get married soon. So love bombing did not raise a red flag for me because it seemed like this was this guy who knew what he wanted, you know. And so all the red flags that should have been raised for me, it was, whoo, it's so cute, you know. This guy loves writes poems for me and makes me feel so loved and so appreciated and makes me feel beautiful, you know, because I also had my own self-esteem issues, you know, besides, you know, feeling like I was late and whatever. I had my self-esteem issues where I believed I was not lovable enough. I believed that I was not beautiful enough. So this getting all of this attention from this guy made my head go like, you know, I'm loved and whatever. But to a normal person, love bombing should raise a red flag. Why is this person so obsessed about me? Why are they rushing through making our relationship public so soon? You know, but because we are wounded people, when we meet these people, we get excited. So I guess then we have to also talk about how what happens when trauma meets trauma, you know, because this person met an already traumatized person, a person who's already dealing with their own. Yeah, the sound is bad, Buti. I'm so sorry about that. Let me try and mute my guest whilst I speak. It becomes better when one of us is muted.
I can't get you. I don't know if you've muted yourself as well. I can't get you.
Sorry, I muted myself. Okay, please mute yourself, then I can finish my point. I don't even know where I was now. Okay, let me start from where I think I was before I got muted. I was saying that when love bombing comes to a normal person, and okay, I don't want to use normal, but to a sane person, to a person who has no issues, it looks like a red flag. And by every right, that person would run away. But when it comes to a person who's already clouded by their own trauma, it looks beautiful. It looks like, am I still on mute? No, you can hear me, Mos. Okay. So to when it comes to a person who's already in trauma, it looks, wow, like, whoo, this guy loves me. And I was making an example of how I was love bombed. I was written beautiful poems. And all of them have raised like a red flag in me to say, this is not how it's supposed to be. But it did not. So I was saying that as you go through your definitions, maybe we can help each other to come up with examples. You spoke about love bombing. That's the first stage. You spoke about the trust. Um, I don't know what did you
Depending.
call it, the trust building as the second stage. Maybe you can give examples on that. I'll mute myself now so that you can sound better.
Okay, so usually the development of a normal relationship, because this is when you are getting to know someone, you want to learn more about them, you want to question them, you want to ask them how they do things, what are their preferences, what are their do's and don'ts. But in trauma bonding, during this process, during this stage, like, you are not allowed to question them, because the moment you ask them to say, okay, why have you done such a thing in this way, they'll be like, why are you questioning me? Don't you trust me? It's like they're blackmailing you. You need to trust them. You can't question them. So that should be a sign to say this is they're trying to build that trust and dependency on them. Was that clear?
Yes,
All right.
that was clear.
Okay. So we go to the third stage, which is criticism. Here they make you vulnerable. They gradually start criticizing you to blame you for everything and become more demanding. Like, whatever is happening is your fault. It's okay, they already have your trust, they've earned your trust. So whatever is happening is your fault. You don't even really have much of a say of whatever is happening. You can't complain. Whenever you try to say this, and then they instead try to victimize themselves, like, no, can't I, you are the one who caused this, you're the one who did this. So they put that pressure on you so as you feel guilty for whatever has happened, and then you begin to apologize for even something that you are not at fault for. Then if you have
Can I
examples that
can
are,
I just chip in there?
come again.
Can I just chip in there?
Yes, please.
Um, okay. So, okay, let me just add Darius quickly before I did I add him on the screen already? I can't see him. I can see him on guest. Am I mute again?
No, you're not.
Oh, okay, great. I'm trying to add Darius before I continue, but I saw him on the guest, but now he's disappeared. Hopefully he will
Okay.
okay. Hopefully he'll join and unmute himself. I'm gonna mute you so that all right. I'm so sorry, guys. We are struggling with sound today. For some reason, whenever one more than one person is unmute, it just sounds crazy. I was going to say that where it hits the most, that criticism, which is the third stage. You remember, it comes after this person has love bombed you and made you fall in love with them, and then they built their trust, with you. Now you are at a stage where their word is is wisdom. Their word is everything, because you believe that everything that they say is true. You believe that everything that they say is what you should hold on to. In my case, in retrospect, there at the time when the trust was built, there were people that came to me to whisper certain things about my person, and I refused to hear them, because everything that this guy had said was for me the gospel. I was like, Banomona, they are jealous. They don't want us to be together. They don't want him to be happy. And it made me believe that everybody was jealous of him. So when people came and said, be careful of this and this. And I'm like, no, come on, guys. My person is sweet as an angel. Now, when the criticism came, where it crushed me is that everything he had made me to feel beautiful about, he now turned it around. All the things that when he was love bombing me, all the things that he made he made sound as if they are the most beautiful features on me. Now they were ugly. All of a sudden I was insulted with my body structure. Oh, Vetu. I mean, when we started, my body structure was the most beautiful thing he had ever seen. Everything that he had said in the love bombing stage, when it came to criticism, he came to me. I already said I was a single parent of two when we met. I was an independent, strong woman who was managing her life and finances very well. I had a car, a house, and two cars. I was okay. So I was this independent person. When it came to criticism stage, all of my independence was criticized. I was making now it was made sound like you are making yourself a man. You think that you should have control of everything in his house because you are bringing in the money. But that's what attracted you to me. you know so it's like in criticism, everything that was appreciated about you becomes reverse. It becomes wrong. Everything is wrong. He is cheating because you are a woman who's always voicing out her opinions. You are whatever. He's cheating because you're always busy minding the children. Duh, that's natural. So everything becomes, it's your problem, and everything that was appreciated about you becomes an issue. And because you are trapped in this trauma point cycle, you don't see the depth and of how the depth of this trap, and how wide it is, and you keep on being trapped and trapped, and the bond gets stronger and stronger. I mean, everything that I'm talking about, I saw it in my first year of marriage, but I stayed 2 more years before my eyes were opened once again. Okay, I'll let you continue.
Now we go to the fourth stage, which is manipulation and gaslighting. So in this stage, when things go wrong, they make you feel that it's your fault, so that you start doubting your own perception, and they manipulate you to believe in their narrative instead. So the main aspect of this stage is that they're trying to make you stop believing in yourself. It's now about them. So they are manipulating you in such a way that whatever opinions you have about yourself, they'll make them in such a way that no, whatever you're saying is not good. Look at things from my point of view. Look at things from my perception. So you begin to doubt your own perception. So you go down in their vein of the vein of their narrative. You begin to believe whatever they are saying is what is right. Maybe you can also relate on that one. Are you able to give an example?
You can continue to the next stage.
All right. So the fifth stage is resignation and giving up. So here the targets of the abusers begin to give in to avoid more conflict. So what happens here is that because you've realized you've been arguing, they're criticizing you, they're manipulating you, this and that. So you give up at this point in time. You don't even want to argue. Whatever they say, you are giving up. You don't even want to really have much of a say of whatever is happening, whatever is transpiring. Whatever they say, you just agree to what they are saying. So at this stage now, it shows that you are giving in to whatever they are saying. So you are giving up slowly.
Let me chip in there.
All right.
Okay, so this giving up stage, as you've already said, it follows after manipulation. So this person love bombed you, they made you trust them, and then they started criticizing you, then they manipulate you, and you actually, you get to a point where their voice is the only thing that matters. Like, you are deaf to everything else and everybody else. And then you get to this stage where you resign. That resignation stage, you are tired. You are exhausted. You feel like, you know what, in any case, we're going to fight. In any case, you've already picked up the pattern. You know where it's going to end. So you get to a point where it's like, whatever, it's okay. This is when I would say, you'll correct me if I'm wrong, but this is when I would say this is where the victim becomes toxic as well. I remember how in my life I started the fights myself because I knew that if we fight, he's going to silent treat me. We're going to quickly go into silent treatment. We could go into silent treatment for a week, 2 weeks sometimes. And in that time, if we ever needed to go to church, would wake up in the morning and prepare to go to church, wear matching outfits, show up. Beautiful. And no one would ever pick up that the whole week we were not talking to each other. Actually, until that morning, we were not talking to each other and would pick up the silent treatment again after church. So, and then I started calculating and being manipulative, that I knew that if he silent treats me, it always gave me more time to spend with the children, like without having to worry about dividing my time between him and the children. So sometimes I would get to a point of, I'm going to start a fight. Then we get into silent treatment. And then I get home. I spend more time with the children. We play together and whatnot. Or if there was something that I wanted maybe to attend, a function that I wanted to, and I didn't want him to come with me or whatever. I just didn't want him in my space. I would get to, so I already knew how we would get to a point of not talking. So sometimes I would be the one who starts an issue so that we get to a point where we're not talking to each other, and then I can do my own things in peace without worrying about him. And that resignation, it feels like defeat to the victim, because you get to a point where you're like, nothing I ever do works in any case. We are always going to go with your way in any case. So what's the point? You get to a point where you are relaxed. You're like, whatever. My ex was somebody who liked doing house chores, like washing, laundry, iron, and whatever. Sometimes I would just because I know he's gonna do it anyway, his way. So I'll just get to a point where, like, I'm not gonna iron for him. I'm not gonna, because he's gonna do it his way anyway. Even though sometimes it would be he's doing it to hurt me or whatever. But you get to a point where you enjoy the benefits of the toxicity, and you're like, I'm gonna use it for my benefit. So yeah, I get you. That's the stage of resignation. I don't know if you want us to take a few comments or questions before we get to the next stage, or must I let you finish first?
I think we can go ahead and finish so that people are clear. Were you able to get me, or I was muted?
You were muted. Okay.
Then you can allow in for comments and questions so that everyone is clear before we proceed.
Okay, that's one of the questions on the screen. How does one identify the trauma bond from the onset?
Okay, so one of the ways to easily identify trauma bonds from the onset is how quick someone wants to do things. Like, can you relax? If you really love me, we are in this together, and we're gonna be together anyway forever. So, but if someone is an abuser, what they'll do is try to speed up the whole process so that they get to a stage where they can enjoy the benefits of abusing you. So that's a sign, or something that you can use to identify, to say this is actually a trauma bond and not love.
That's very true. I wanted to say that the speed on which things take off should not excite you, because that's a huge sign of why are we rushing. I met this person within 4 months of knowing each other. We're married. That was the speed. Things were just moving fast, 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 fast. That should make you go like, wait, what's going on? Why are we rushing? The natural build up of relationship should be, we get to know each other, At some point, introduce each other to our families. At some point, friends get involved, and what. But the minute there's so much rush, you must take a step back and ask yourself why the rush. Okay, there's another comment. Wusu says that narcissists are all the same. It's as if you're talking about my life. I know, girl. Hey, I know. It's like you see, like, and I think when you are in trauma, when you've been in dealing with your own trauma, maybe this is one of the things that my colleague here has to talk about, how easy it is for us, people that have suffered from trauma, to attract these type of people that and it's like you attract the very same person over and over again in different faces, in different phases. Like, wow, we're back here again. Maybe that's one of the things that we have to talk about before we part ways tonight. That how do you break the cycle for yourself, before you attract another person who's going to put you through the same thing. Okay. Bebe says, the insight you're giving is a story of my life until I divorced in 20, in I okay, 2027 is in the future. So I guess that's 2017. After 4 years of marriage. uh was it girl, me and you said this is why you have to write that book. You got married after 2 weeks of dating. I relate, girl. I relate. Okay, there's a question for you. How do you balance trauma? Okay, please show. How do you balance trauma bond after 4 years in marriage? Um,
The question is not really clear. Like, how do you balance trauma bonds after 4 years of marriage? I don't get it. Maybe if the person can try to rephrase it.
okay, it's painful here because what you're mentioning happened to me even when I was slaughtered for preaching. Okay, I'm not sure what I was mentioning there, but yeah, it's relatable. All right, I guess let's continue and talk about the last stage, and then we will talk about how to break the cycle for yourself as a person, as an individual. And now that will tie nicely what we spoke about last week, because last week we spoke about trauma, we spoke about PTSD. Now we talk about trauma bonding. So once we answer that question of how do you break the trauma for yourself, it's gonna tie everything nicely together to know how do I take responsibility for myself before I attract yet another person who's going to put me through what I've gone through. Because for myself, I can trace where my trauma started. I can trace that all my life I've carried childhood trauma, which was never dealt with, which was easy for me to fall so quickly for someone of that nature, because somewhere in my subconscious mind this resonated, and it seemed like this person came to heal the broken parts of me, only to realize that he came to destroy, what even the little bit of healing that was there, and made things even worse. So hence my book Beyond Broken, because I felt like he moved me from a point of being broken to a point of being beyond broken, because it's like, hey, Bo, he came and ticked every wrong box, every wrong box, and that broke me even further on top of the brokenness that I already had that was existing. So maybe go through the last stage, and then we'll answer the question of how do we break the cycle for each and every individual.
Okay. So we go to the sixth stage, which is the loss of the self. So throughout the stages of trauma, there is a progressive loss of self. So in all these stages, you are losing yourself bit by bit. You are losing yourself bit by bit. So this brings tremendous pain and disconnection from the world that we once knew, such that people can no longer identify you as who you were. You become a loner. You are alone. You are always lonely. you can't really relate or resonate with people at the pace at which you were. So you are disconnected, you have lost yourself, and now you're questioning yourself. Who am I? It's like you've lost yourself, you can't identify yourself anymore. So you lose yourself at this stage. Then the last stage, which is addiction to the cycle. The cycle of bonding may be restarted. It will go back again to love bonding. Whatever is happening, trust is being built once again, and then the cycle continues. So this brings us to the stage of addiction. So once they realize that now you, like the stage where you gave an example where you are saying, because you've been abused now, at some point you are the one who actually starts the fights and all that uh, to just so that you can also feel like you're compensating yourself in some way. So when the person realizes that you are becoming
Your
disconnected.
sound is getting worse and worse.
Oh my god. Are you getting me clearly?
No, I'm going to try and mute you.
Okay.
Okay, I'm not sure what was happening there because I was muted, but you were very, very bad. I'm gonna mute myself and unmute you again. Then let's see.
Okay. So how is it now? Still bad. Uh,
It's very bad. I'm struggling to hear you myself, and I'm sure it's worse for those who are in Zoom.
hello.
This thing is jealous.
Oh my. Are you getting me? How is it now? Still bad?
It's very
Ish.
bad.
Oh my god. Okay, let me try to log out and try to rejoin again. Is that okay?
Okay. Sorry, I didn't realize that I had muted myself. But there's a comment there that says that the stages I'm highlighting are very painful. They are very, very painful. And unfortunately, it is what it is. We go through it. And I'm trying to get the comments on Zoom as well. Okay. I'm going to share the questions that we got on Zoom when she joined again. So sorry guys, this phone is falling. Okay, perfect. Um they are very painful, my friends, Bebe, but unfortunately it is life. And the very unfortunate part about this is that you only learn about these things after you've been through them. For me, but for me, I welcomed the knowledge as a gift, that at least now I can put words to what I've been through. Like I can explain it. Because when you're going through it, you get to a point where you feel like, am I stupid? Am I crazy? How did I not see any of these? Okay, and you go through that bargaining with yourself. Why me? Why did this have to happen to me? And then you get to a point where you question your sanity. Maybe I am crazy, because what the person will be doing to you is, to one of the stages that Portrait mentioned, is where you questioning your sanity. Like you don't even believe your own thoughts. You don't even believe what you are experiencing, if it is true, like if and then you get to a point where you're like, okay, what I'm experiencing is true, it is happening, but is it as bad as I make it to be? You get to that point where you question yourself, things like that, like, is it really as bad as I make it to be? Am I exaggerating things? You are questioning yourself. So for me, when I got to learn about these things, I appreciated the knowledge, and I was like, I was not crazy. So these things really did happen, and I was not crazy when I was experiencing them, And okay, Potrin, I see this thing says you are back, but oh, there we go. Doesn't want me to. Okay, now I've added you to the stream. Let's try again. We'll try now. So Let me mute myself and then try talking.
Oh, I can go ahead. I'm clear, audible enough. All right. So I was talking about the last stage, which is addiction. So I said in the last stage, usually it's the cycle is beginning once
Please,
again.
please start on the sixth one because we started losing you on the sixth one.
Okay, so the six is one. Quickly, this is why we're talking about why a person loses themselves. You no longer know yourself. You have lost your identity. So it's difficult to be able to resonate with whatever is happening. The people that you knew, your friends, your family, all those close relationships, people have detached because you no longer socialize with them the way you used to do. So you've lost your identity and you're questioning yourself. Like you said, you can't even believe in your own thoughts. You've lost yourself basically. So this the last stage, which is addiction to the cycle. Usually, this is where the whole cycle begins again. So because they've realized that now you are somehow frustrated, you are giving up, you are slowly detaching. They begin to love bombing you again once again, so that they can get the trust that they had. So they're trying to give you back they're manipulating you yet once again. So now you're thinking in your mind, oh, I think he's a changed person now. He's coming back around. He loves me. That's why we're still together up to this time. So they're starting the whole process again. It's a cycle. Or better still, sometimes most of them will even completely go mute on you. They'll withdraw their affection. They become avoidant. So they put you in a position where you are in pressure. You're in pressure so that you feel like you should apologize, and then you're you learn helplessness. You are vulnerable at that point in time. So it becomes even difficult. Now it has become an addiction. So the cycle keeps on going and going and going.
Wow. Um, as as you're explaining, I remember how I got my wedding ring. Oh my goodness. Um, for the duration of our Darius, I'm trying to add you, but I don't know where you disappeared to. Whenever I try to add you to the stream, your name disappears. But if you are here and you are able to add you to the stream, you add yourself, please add. Okay, but what you're saying is the last stage for me, where for the duration of our marriage, we had decided that we're not wearing wedding bands. More his decision than mine, actually, but I accepted it that we're not wearing wedding rings. How I got my wedding ring was after a serious beating and a very huge fight where I told him that he must pack and go and leave me alone, and I don't want him in my life anymore. And then after that weekend, he was on one knee giving me my wedding ring. That's why for me, when I decided it was over, I didn't want it anymore, that ring was the first thing I threw in the dustbin. My daughter kept on asking me, Mama, why are you not selling it? Why? I was like, yay, I don't want this thing. I threw it in the bin, and the people came. They removed the removal. Took it. They took it. Maybe some person picked it up and sold it for themselves. Didn't even care. It made me angry because I realized when I finally had the guts to walk away that ring was buying me back. It was to restart the cycle. It was to make me change my mind. It was for me to get to a point where I say, I forgive you, let's try again and whatnot, because he was now talking about the renewal of vows. And round about the same time, it's the same time when we went to church, he insisted we went to church after not speaking for like 2 weeks together. We're not talking at all. That day when we got to church, he asked me to for a moment outside. And we went and talked outside. And outside, I mean, everybody is at church and everybody's looking at us. Obviously, it's putting me under pressure to be amicable, to listen, to hear him out. And I was there, puzzled, like, what are you doing? I mean, we left home without talking, and now you're here, and I mean, putting pressure on me in front of people, asking me to forgive you. He was kneeling down, asking me to forgive him and whatnot. I now realize that that was the last stage in the trauma bond, because he had realized that he had lost me. already. I was now very vocal about, I don't want you in my life anymore. Please pack and go. Like, just leave me alone. I'll see what to tell people about what happened between us. I won't paint you bad and whatnot. I was bargaining with him to say, leave. I won't even tell people what you did to me. I'll just find a story to tell them. But he was trying to rope me back into the trauma bond once again. So hence the wedding ring. For me, it was the one thing that I hated the most. I took it, threw it in the bin. When after he left, I was like, I'm not gonna deal with it. I hope that my explanations and me chipping in with my experience makes it clear for everyone how real this is. It's not just a psychological compilation of 7 stages or whatever. It's proven. It's there. It happens. And a lot of people that have commented have resonated with it because it has happened to them as well. Okay, so there's a question. Does this only happen to women? That's the first question. Maybe let's answer that question before we go to the others.
No, actually, this happens to anyone. It can be a child, it can be a man. There are men that are also abused. I think that's why we have certain organizations like GBV, because they've realized that even men sometimes tend to become victims of such situations. So it's not only women, it can be a man, it can be a child, depending on whatever relationship you are in. One of the two is being abused, the other one is the abuser.
Very true. Men also go through abuse. Um, okay. The second question is, okay, I have a question. You talked about how you were deliberately picking up fights, like you got so used to the toxicity that you could initiate it. Could it be that you got so conditioned to it? After that, I have a follow-up contribution based on what I learned from this today somewhere. Yes, Shilala, I got used to it. I got conditioned to it. I'm generally a peaceful person, if I were to put it like that. I'm generally a person who stays away from starting unnecessary fights and all that. And I deal with fights that come to me. Like, don't come for me if I don't come for you. I'm that type of person. So when I met this guy, I did not even know there's a side of me that has a potential of being toxic or or have a potential of even starting fights. I didn't know that about myself until I got into this situation with him, where for me, the starting of the fights, honestly, more than anything else, it was to give myself peace from him. Because on the times where we're not fighting, he could be a very good person. He would be that person who's generally helpful in the house and whatnot. And then it would get to a point where we are fighting constantly, for a while. We move between silent treatment to being normalish, and then go to a point where we are extremely in love and whatnot. So for me, starting the fights was to honestly get a break from the relationship, if I were to put it like that, where I would feel like, okay, your love is suffocating me now, like you are too much, I don't want you in my space, or I just want to do other things without you, or I want to spend more time with my children or whatever. And there was also this thing that whenever we were fighting, he would not eat the food that I've cooked. He would intentionally make me aware that he's being fed some way. Like he would bring Tupperware story. Actually, we must have this conversation. Those who are not in South Africa will not understand this, but there was a Tupperware story this week. There's a conversation I need to have with this audience at some other time about it. He would intentionally bring Tupperware home that is food, or leftovers of food, showing me that he was getting food somewhere. So we got to that point where I enjoyed not cooking for him, because I knew that if we're fighting, he's not going to eat the food that I've cooked. And I was like, yay, works for me. I mean, we could eat noodles if we wanted to, or sleep on breakfast food or cereal or whatever, and no one was gonna question me. So that's where my toxicity came in, to say, oh, okay, if we fight, I'm not gonna have to cook at least for the next week or two. Good, works for me. My children can eat anything I prepare for them. I would eat at work because where I was working at that time, they provided for us a one meal a day, a lunchtime, like which was a proper balanced meal with meat and veggies and starch and whatnot. So I would have had a full lunch for myself. I didn't mind sleeping on cereal. I didn't mind having a fruit salad for supper. So I used that to work for myself. Could be that I was conditioned to it. It could be that I had learned toxicity. I don't know. So, and to that person who was asking if this only happens to women, the friend Bebe that I've been mentioning here on the comments is a man. He who has gone through this, and he relates to every stage that we have mentioned. And one of his comments now is that the 7 stages are real life experiences here. I can subscribe to them stage by stage. So it doesn't only happen to women, it happens to everyone who's been through trauma. And you can ask your follow-up question, Chilala. I don't know if there's anything else you want to add, Patrine. Let me mute myself.
Not really. I think you've. I loved your summary, and just to add on to what you said, where you became toxic, bad behavior can also be learned just as we learn good behavior. So I can give an example of a child who's constantly being beaten. Like you can't really just tell the child what to do, or minus you having to become physical with them. That child gets used. They become conditioned. Like before you beat them, they will not be able to do the task that you've given them. So they've become conditioned. They won't function minus you beating them. So you get to a stage where you learn that, and you become to you start exhibiting such, yeah. To some extent, like you said, just for you to get some peace of mind. Sometimes you're trying to retaliate. You're trying to compensate yourself for what he's been doing to you, or whatever. If it's a she or he, yeah.
All right. Thank you so much. I guess that now let's go to that question that I mentioned earlier. Daria said he's available for chat. I don't see him on the screen, or I see him on Zoom. Okay. Um, that question that I asked earlier. How then? How does one liberate themselves or save themselves? Now, let's say if one person who's listening here gets to the point where they're like, I am in trauma bond, and I don't want to be in this thing anymore. I see all the signs. I've seen all the stages. I've resonated to all of them. How do they save themselves? And not only that, not just in this particular situation. How do I free or liberate myself completely, to get to a point where I no longer attract trauma anymore? you know um how do I get to that point? I can safely say for myself, I've reached that point where I am at peace with what I attract now. Because I've healed, I've taken time to heal. But how does one, now that I'm asking you as a psychologist, how does one get to a point where they are free? I can freely talk about my journey, what did I do and whatnot, but that may not apply to everyone. So that's the question to you. How do you liberate yourself as an individual to get to a point where you are no longer in that frame of mind where you are subconsciously attracting trauma to your trauma? Or how do you heal yourself from the trauma completely?
So first things first, it's like solving a problem, huh? So before you solve a problem, you need to be able to identify what is causing the problem. So from what we've learned and what has been talked about now, if you are such a one who's going through a trauma bonding, by now you should be able to identify or see some red flags that are happening in your relationship, be it a parent relationship, or you know maybe boyfriend girlfriend relationship, wife husband. You should be able to identify those red flags. And once you have identified those red flags, you need to make a decision. It's a decision that you need to make. Just like you said, you had to decide. For the past 3 years, you were there suffering, going through the same thing, getting addicted and all that. But it got to a point where you had to decide to stand up for yourself. because no matter how much people try, do you remember the point or the stage where people tried to convince you to say, no, this person is actually abusing you, this person, but you couldn't hear them, so it was because maybe you hadn't really seen all the red flags and all that. So once you start seeing those red flags, then you need to make a decision to stand up for yourself, because if you don't, abusers will never stop. They will keep on abusing you. Their actions will keep on going and going. So you need to identify the red flags and then stand up for yourself. Focus on the things that are going to help you become productive. Once you realize you're becoming vulnerable, dependent on someone, you can no longer stand for yourself. You don't know who you are anymore. Those are red flags that are showing you to say this might be a trauma bond. So once you identify them, you need to leave that. And one thing, you need to be patient with yourself. So healing is a long process. It's a gradual process. It won't happen overnight. So you need to be patient with yourself in as much as you are going to be, that you take up the process of healing.
Thank you so much. Um, you have just said one of my favorite statements, that healing is a process. I usually say healing is multi-layered. You peel one layer and you think you are done. Then you get to the next one, you're like, oh, I'm not done. There's one more layer to heal. And for me, I mean, now I can proudly say I no longer attract those kind of people, because I've reached a certain stage of healing in my life where red flags are not little cute pinkish things or reddish things. I don't play with them. Like, a red flag is a red flag. I look at it and I'm like, whoa, guy, you are bringing trouble into my life. And it takes healing for you to be able to identify red flags. If you are not healed, you are not going to identify red flags. If you are not healed, you are going to see red flags as cute little things that are decorating your love situation, and you will be blind, as I said also earlier. You will not even hear when people are trying to warn you. So it's unfortunately, it's not our fault that we're broken. It's not you did not cause your brokenness, but it is your responsibility to heal. I lived a lot of my years going dealing with not dealing living with childhood trauma that was never dealt with. It was just neatly packed somewhere, and never touched and never dealt with. And that costed me a whole lot in my life, because everything that I was doing, how I related to people, and everything was neatly linked to my childhood trauma. Had I taken time to deal with my childhood trauma, I would have never even given this guy a second look. I would have seen the first one, like, ooh, no, can't. I'm sorry. And someone is send me a message about love potions and whatnot. Maybe it's not love potions. Maybe it is trauma bond. Maybe. I don't know. I grew up in the villages where witchcraft is real. I don't know. Maybe what we have seen or termed as love potions, maybe it is a trauma bond that makes people to go back here once and again. um okay, I'm back. I'm so sorry about that. uh, there's a few comments that I want us to go through before we call it a night. We've already gone past our hour, but I don't want to leave this out. Okay. At times, the abuser paints a good picture in public so that no one will believe you when you tell your story. That's actually covered in one of the stages. They are very good at that. And once they are building trust with you, they're building trust with everybody. They show everybody how well they are treating you, and everybody falls in love with them because they are such a good person. And then when they come home and they become a monster, you don't have anyone to tell, because who's going to believe you? This person is a darling to everyone except to you. So it becomes a very tricky situation to get out of, because even when you try to reclaim your voice, you lose it, because it's like, who is going to believe me? You know, it's very true. Okay, does this mean people cannot change? They cannot see they are wrong, or they cannot see they are wrong doing and start treating you right and not continue with the cycle? I'm going to let the experts answer this one. I have my opinion, but let Patrine to respond there.
Usually, most of the times, in most cases, an abuser will not change because this is something they're benefiting from. It's like it's something they're enjoying, you know. And some of them have turned into abusers also because of the traumatic experiences that they went through during their childhood. Okay, so whatever actions they're trying to, it's like they're projecting all their anger or whatever they went through on you. So it's not in all cases where they can become, unless they seek professional help. But in most cases, most abusers will not even let you have a word with them. You will always argue, it will always be a fight. So you don't even know how best to get to them, to advise them to seek professional help. So because in most cases, if you even try to say no, I want you to see a professional, a professional, maybe psychologist or any person who can help you, you know, become a better person, then it's like you are deeming them as mad, or they are not okay, they are, you know, they are lunatics or whatnot. So it's really difficult, and in most cases it's not possible. They won't just break their cycles. It's in them, and it really takes professional help to also help them, you know, get out of there and realize, because for them it has even become a pattern. It has become a way of life. It's like, it's for them it's normal. They don't even realize it to some extent. This is why they keep on doing. You would wonder sometimes, like, people who abuse a 5 year old, like, have they lost their mind? Why can't this person realize that this is bad, you know? So they also need help in the actual sense.
I like the point that you're making, that um, it's not impossible for them to change. It's just very difficult. What makes it difficult is the fact that sometimes they're in denial. They don't even want to acknowledge that what they're doing is wrong. So it makes it very difficult to reach out to them, because even when they apologize, their apology is full of manipulation. They're just manipulating you for you to go back to the trap and all that. So it's very difficult to redeem them unless they really want to change. Then they will take steps to heal. They will go for counseling. They will do everything in their power. I mean, my person would even tell me that I'm taking anger management classes. We're gonna be fine. And to find out he's lying, you know? So you, all of those things, all of those promises that they make, it's because they want to manipulate you. So it's not impossible for them to change. They just have to want to change. Okay, Wusi also says it's also a lack of knowledge. True. Sometimes it's not love portion. Sometimes it's trauma bond. Sometimes it's a lack of knowledge. Sometimes it's honestly not knowing that there is a better way. You know. Um. Okay. Important point you're mentioning. Childhood trauma, if not dealt with, affects. Perfect. That's why we talked about trauma last week, from a parental space, because we want to we are expected to be fully functioning adults, whereas we have childhood trauma that was never dealt with. And now you are this adult, you are married, and you're expected to be a functioning wife and a beautiful mother that's sensible and all that, that's not abusive and whatever. But you have your own baggage you never dealt with, and how are you supposed to be transformed to this beautiful, honorable, responsible person, whereas your own childhood trauma is not dealt with? The little girl in you is busy crying, needing attention, and you are in an adult body that requires you to be a certain level of sane. So it's very true that a childhood trauma needs to be dealt with. Okay. Chilala is also a psychologist. I want to display his comment. From a psychodynamic approach of therapy, one way of dealing with traumatic issues is by digging deep in the subconscious to unearth the repressed thoughts in the subconscious and work or deal with them. That is very important rather than leaving the trauma unattended to. That's very true. That's what we're talking about. That you have to, the most painful thing with healing is that you have to go back to your trauma and face it head on, and not pretend as if it's not there. If it was rape when you were a child, you can't pretend as if it didn't happen. You have to look rape face to face and say, this happened to me and it hurt. And how do I deal with it? If it is abuse from a parent or whatever, you have to go back to face with. That's what Chilala is talking about. That you cannot approach it from a repressed point of view. It has to be unearthed. It has to come to the surface and get to a point where you are dealing with it. You can't just pretend as if it's not there. So you have to deal with your childhood trauma so that you can be a better person. Busu says narcissism, I think that's what she's talking about, is a personality disorder and it needs professional help and also admitting that there's a problem. That's why it becomes very difficult to help narcissists because they don't even realize, they don't even admit that it's a problem. Okay, thank you for the empowerment, benefited a lot. Thank you. Okay. Okay, Unoabi is the one who I had asked the first question if I was saying that a person can't be helped. She's saying that she has a positive experience of this. The person went for therapy and is like a totally different person. Exactly. The person committed to being helped and they got helped. Otherwise, a whole lot of them don't even, one, admit that there's a problem. Two, if you don't admit that there's a problem, you will never seek help. You'll never want to get help. Okay. Thank you so much, guys, from all the platforms. Thank you for your comments, for your questions. And yes, we do promise that we will bring more power bomb topics like this. They are not they're not easy to talk about, but we are here and we try to touch on all of these topics that are not so easy to deal with. And as we always say, please do suggest if you have any topic that you feel like we should deal with, inbox me, WhatsApp me. My page has my WhatsApp number. Inbox Darius. Tell us what you do, want us to talk about. We are here. We are not just focusing on, I know we call this parenting corner, but we're not just focusing on parenting because what we are or who we are as children eventually affects the kind of parents that we are. Like now we've just dealt with a topic that comes deep down, from the broken little girl that was abused when she was a child, and now has to deal with this as an adult in a different phase. You understand? So as much as we call this a parenting corner, with any topic is welcome. Please suggest any topic that you want us to talk about. We promise we have experts that will talk about it. I'm going to give Patrine a chance to say goodbye, and then we will end the live session.
Okay, so thank you. I think I've had a wonderful time. I've learned from your experiences, your examples, and because you are able to relate from that. And I'm sure that it's the same with people who are watching and whoever is in this meeting. Most people are actually able to relate, but just don't know how to get out of this. But with such conversations, I'm sure you get to learn of how you are going to. My God, babe.
Okay. I'm not sure what happened there, but we lost you. You are now frozen. Okay. Thank you so much, Patrine. I hope you can still hear me. Thank you so much for coming in and standing in for the people that were scheduled to be here today. And I know we roped you in there, and you just you took it on, and thank you so much for that. It's as if we had prepared this together. And thank you so much for everyone who joined us live on Zoom, on Facebook, on YouTube. Thank you for your comments. They are beneficial to us, and the questions and everything. We appreciate you. and we promise to keep up the good work, and we promise to bring, even more and more relevant topics. And yes, we always welcome your suggestions. Drop me a message and tell me what you'd like us to address, in our next next sessions. We do this once a week. Sometimes we do it on a Tuesday evening. Sometimes we do it on a Thursday evening. So just be on the lookout for your poster. There is a poster once every week that talks about what we'll talk about live. Thank you so much.